No one spoke to the old alien woman anymore. They walked past her as if she was already dead. Her name was Lura, though no one used it now. Names were for citizens, not for mistakes. She moved slowly through the long metal corridor of the space station, one thin hand pressed against the cold wall, the other resting on her large, heavy belly. Every step hurt. Every breath felt borrowed. She was old. Too old, according to her people. On her homeworld, life was measured by usefulness. Females were allowed to give birth only during a narrow window of years. After that, the body was considered weak, unfit, and dangerous. A late pregnancy was not a miracle. It was a crime. Lura had known the law. Everyone did, but she had also known loneliness. Her mate had died many cycles ago. Her children were grown, scattered across distant systems, trained to forget weakness. When she felt life stirring inside her again, she had cried in fear. And then in wonder. For the first time in years, her nights were not empty. When the council discovered her condition, they did not ask how she felt. They did not listen when she said the child was strong, that she could feel it kicking with power. They looked at her age-marked skin and turned away. Late pregnancy is a burden on the collective. The council leader said, "Exile is mercy." Another added, "Mercy." They put her on an unmanned cargo shuttle with basic supplies. No medical unit. No comforts. Just enough oxygen to last a while. They sent her to an abandoned space station at the edge of known routes. A place ships no longer bothered to visit. When the airlock sealed behind her, Lura realized something with terrible clarity. They did not expect her to survive. The station was silent. Lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the metal floor. Machines hummed like tired old creatures, working only because they had not yet been told to stop. The air was thin and smelled of rust and old oil. Lura chose a small storage room to sleep in. She laid down on the cold floor, using her folded cloak as a pillow. Her back ached. Her joints burned. The child inside her shifted, and she placed both hands on her belly. "I'm here," she whispered. "I won't leave you." Food was ration paste, tasteless and dry. Water was recycled so many times it barely felt clean. Some days she could not keep the food down. Other days she forced herself to eat, because the child needed strength, even if she did not. Time passed slowly. She spoke to no one but the unborn life inside her. She told the child stories of her homeworld, of warm skies and soft winds, of music that once played in the streets. Sometimes she cried. Quietly, carefully, not because she feared death, but because she feared the child would never be held, never be named, never be loved. She often wondered if her people were right. If maybe she truly was selfish for wanting this life. If maybe the universe would be better without her mistake. Then the baby kicked again, strong, demanding, alive, and Lura would breathe through the pain and whisper apologies for ever doubting. One cycle. As she walked through the docking ring to check the oxygen panel, a sound echoed through the station, a deep mechanical clang. Her heart stopped. Docking alarms began to pulse. Low and slow, like a heartbeat awakening after a long sleep. A ship. Someone was coming. Fear rushed through her. Inspectors sometimes checked abandoned stations. If they saw her condition, they might end everything quickly and cleanly. Lura backed into the shadows, pressing herself against the wall, holding her breath. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Heavy, confident, not alien. Then a voice echoed down the corridor. "Hello? Anyone alive out here?" The voice was rough, warm, human. Lura did not know whether to hide or hope. And for the first time since her exile, the silence was broken, not by machines, but by the possibility that someone might see her as more than a mistake. The next hours were strange for Lura. She had not expected company. She had not expected warmth. She had only expected silence, But the voice she had heard echoed again, closer this time, and it carried a weight that felt oddly comforting. The ship's docking clamps rattled, and the metal doors slowly hissed open. Light spilled into the station corridor. Lura pressed herself against the wall, her belly heavy, her breath shallow. She had not seen another being in months, not in cycles, not since the council had cast her away. Then she saw him, a human, tall, broad. His suit was scratched and patched, his boots scuffed. But his eyes, deep brown, looked at her, not with judgment, not with disgust, but with curiosity, hesitation, compassion. For a moment, Lura froze. She did not know whether to speak or vanish into the shadows. Humans were unpredictable. Some could be kind, others cruel. She remembered stories of explorers who treated aliens like pests, expelling them, experimenting on them, or worse, the human remove his helmet slowly. Warm air flowed out, carrying the scent of oil, metal, and something alive. His voice softened. "You're pregnant," he said. Not as an accusation, not as a command, but as a statement. Lura flinched. She had not heard that word spoken to her in months. On her homeworld, no one had dared say it when she was old. It was shameful, forbidden, a sentence. I am," she whispered, unsure if the sound of her voice would betray fear or hope. The human nodded. "I can see that. Are you okay?" Lura's laugh was bitter, small. "I am alone," she said. "That is all I am." The human took a cautious step forward. "You shouldn't be alone." She studied him. Humans were strange creatures, loud and fearless, always moving forward even in fear. She wanted to ask why he cared. She wanted to tell him that he should leave, that involvement would only bring danger. But the words died in her throat. Instead, she said nothing. He knelt down slowly, placing a hand carefully on a console near her, keeping his distance. "I can help. I have food, medicine, water. You don't have to do this alone." Lura felt something unfamiliar, hope. Tiny, fragile, but it tickled in her chest. She did not trust it. Humans were unreliable. Help could become harm in a heartbeat. But something in his steady gaze told her that he would not turn away, no matter what. Days passed. Evan, she learned his name after he introduced himself, returned. Every day, without fail, he brought supplies. Warm food that smelled alive. Clean water. Medicines she did not know how to pronounce. He listened when she spoke, laughed at her attempts to explain alien stories, and never asked for anything in return. "Why do you help me?" she asked one day, her voice trembling as the child inside her kicked sharply. Evan shrugged, sitting beside her with legs crossed on the cold metal floor. "Because someone should have helped you before," he said simply. "Someone should have seen you as more than a law's mistake." Lura shook her head. Her people had taught her that no one could care so deeply without reason. "But they'll come," she whispered. "The council. The inspectors. They'll find me here, and then—" Evan's hand rested lightly over hers. "Then we'll face it," he said. "Together." Her heart thudded against her chest. Together. She had not felt that word in years. She had only known exile, loneliness, and quiet despair. The child stirred in response, as if sensing the first warmth of protection in months. She closed her eyes, letting the moment sink in. For the first time since the council had cast her out, she did not feel like a mistake. She felt seen. And in the echoing silence of the old space station, the hum of machines and the creak of metal no longer felt like the end of the world. They were two beings, alone in the void. But for the first time, Lura understood that even in exile, life could reach out, and maybe, just maybe, the universe still held a place for her. The days on the station passed slowly, each one stretching longer than the last. Lura's belly grew heavy, and with it, the weight of fear grew heavier too. Every sound in the corridors, the hum of the air recyclers, The distant clank of old machinery made her heart jump. The council's words echoed in her mind. Late pregnancy is a burden. Exile is mercy. But now, for the first time, someone had reminded her that life could be more than rules, and Shane. Evan was there every day. Sometimes he didn't speak, simply moving about the station to check the air filters, clean the recycled water, or arrange food. Other times he talked to her gently, asking about her childhood, her homeworld, the music and colors she loved. Lura realized she hadn't spoken to anyone like this in cycles. No one had cared for her well-being since the council cast her away. "Why are you helping me?" she asked one quiet morning. Her voice was small, almost lost beneath the constant hum of the station. Evan looked at her, tired yet steady. "Because someone should have helped you before. Because it's the right thing. Not everyone has to follow cruel rules blindly." Lura blinked. Her throat tightened. She was used to being judged, ordered, discarded. But no one had ever spoken to her with such clarity, such defiance of law for the sake of life. She wanted to argue, to remind him that interfering could bring danger. But something in her chest loosened, and she let the words die. The station's silence was broken only by the occasional warning ping or the distant hum of docking ships. Yet each day Evan stayed. He brought warmth and life into the cold halls. She began to trust him, to see him as a shield against the universe's indifference. One day, while checking the oxygen levels together, a warning message flashed across Evan's portable console. It was from the station authorities. "Cease all interference with alien exile. Unauthorized aid may result in immediate sanctions." Lura read it over his shoulder. Her heart sank. "You could lose everything," she whispered. Evan's jaw tightened. He did not answer immediately. His fingers hovered over the console, and for a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then, with a calm decisiveness that surprised Lura, he pressed a button and deleted the message. "Some rules are wrong," he said quietly. "Some laws are made to protect fear, not life. I won't stand by and let you die alone." Lura's chest ached. She wanted to protest, to remind him that humans rarely risk so much for aliens. But deep inside, she felt something shift, a fragile hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in cycles. Weeks passed. Evan helped her prepare for the inevitable birth. They created a small safe area in one of the station's empty quarters, cleaning it, reinforcing the air system, and laying soft mats on the floor. Lura still feared the council, feared that inspectors would arrive at any moment, feared that the child might be taken. But when Evan's hand rested gently on hers, when he spoke to the child as if it were already his own, she felt a warmth she hadn't known since her mate's passing. "You don't need to be afraid," Evan said one evening, watching her cradle her swollen belly. "You're not alone anymore. And neither is the baby." The child shifted inside her, and Lura felt a fierce protective surge. She realized something profound. She would fight. She would endure. Not for herself, but for the life growing inside her, for the hope that even a world governed by harsh rules could see mercy through one human's courage. Fear still lingered, but it was no longer absolute. With Evan beside her, with the station slowly transforming from prison to refuge, Lura began to believe that maybe life, even in exile, could triumph over cruelty. And somewhere deep in her heart, she knew that the universe was about to test them both. The station was colder than ever that cycle. The metal walls hummed and groaned under the pressure of the void outside. Lura's belly was impossibly heavy now, the child pressing and shifting, demanding attention. Her joints ached, her breath came in short, sharp bursts, and every step felt like walking through fire. She had never imagined that carrying life could be so painful, so exhausting. One morning, as she tried to reach the air filter in the corner, a sharp pain shot through her abdomen. She gasped, clutching the wall for support. Her legs trembled beneath her. Panic surged. She had feared this moment, the moment when her strength might fail her, and there would be no one but the empty halls of the station to catch her. Then she heard the voice. "Laura, are you okay?" Evan's voice carried through the corridor, steady but urgent. He appeared at the end of the hall, his eyes wide with concern. Seeing him, a part of her heart relaxed, though fear still gripped her. I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The pain, it's too strong." Without hesitation, Evan moved to her side. He steadied her trembling body, supporting her weight as they slowly made their way to the small room he had prepared. The mats, the soft blankets, the warm light, they were a sanctuary against the cold metal world outside. But the pain grew sharper. Laura fell to the floor, curling around herself as if shielding the child inside. Sweat dripped from her temples, and her breathing became uneven. She felt fear clawing at her chest. This was at the point where life and death could collide, where everything she had endured might end in nothing. Evan knelt beside her, speaking softly, reassuringly, though his own hands shook. "You can do this," he said. "I'm right here. I won't leave you. The child won't be alone." She looked at him, pain and doubt in her eyes. "You shouldn't risk yourself," she said. "This is my burden. It's too late for me." He shook his head. "It's never too late to protect life," he said firmly. "I can't let you face this alone. You are not a mistake. You are not a burden." The hours dragged on. Laura's screams echoed through the room, blending with the mechanical hum of the station. Evan worked tirelessly, using human knowledge, guesses, and instinct to assist her. He monitored her condition, adjusted the oxygen flow, and even improvised equipment to ease the child's passage. At one point, Laura thought she could not go on. She felt her strength slipping, her consciousness fading. The world became a blur of pain, metal, and light. She whispered apologies to the unborn life inside her, afraid that she was failing it. Then a small sound broke through, the faintest cry. Weak, fragile, but unmistakable. Laura's tears mixed with sweat as she reached for the child. Wrapped in makeshift cloth, the baby's bright blue skin shimmered under the dim light. Tiny fingers curled around her own. Life, against all laws, against all fear, had triumphed. Evan collapsed to the floor beside them, exhausted, covered in sweat and tears. He laughed softly, a mix of relief and disbelief. "She's perfect," he whispered, barely believing it himself. Laura held her daughter close, her heart overflowing with emotion she had long thought dead. Pain remained, yes, and fear still lingered. But it was overshadowed by the warmth of new life and the steady presence of the human who had refused to leave. For the first time in months, Laura felt hope bloom inside her. She realized that exile, pain, and fear were not the final words of her story. There was still life. There was still kindness. There was still love. And as she gazed at Evan, and then at the tiny, fragile being in her arms, she understood something deep and unshakable. Sometimes, the universe gave second chances, not through laws, not through councils, but through the courage of one being, willing to defy the darkness and protect life. The calm after the birth did not last long. Barely a cycle had passed, when alarms blared across Evan's ship. Red lights pulsed, and the communication system crackled with authority. Laura clutched her daughter tightly, feeling her small heart beating against her chest, while Evan moved quickly to respond. Alien enforcement ships had arrived. The council had learned about the birth, and their message was clear. The child is illegal. The mother must return to exile. Non-compliance will be punished. Evan's jaw tightened as he faced the incoming transmissions. The enforcer's leader spoke, voice cold and sharp. "This birth violates council law. Surrender the child. Return the mother to exile immediately." Laura trembled. She had survived banishment, survived pain, survived fear, but now the child's life hung in the balance. She pressed the baby closer, tears streaming down her blue cheeks. "You can't do this," she whispered to Evan. "They'll take her. They'll kill her." Evan's eyes burned with determination. "Not if I can stop them," he said. He reached for the ship's controls, hands steady despite the tension pressing in from all sides. The enforcers warned again. "Comply or face destruction." Evan ignored them. Instead, he activated the ship's live broadcast system, streaming the scene to human space. Millions of eyes turned toward the distant station and the small ship at its edge. "This is Lura," Evan said, voice loud, clear, and unwavering. "She was exiled for loving life too late. This is her daughter. If you take them in front of all of us." The broadcast ignited a wave of outrage across human systems. Messages poured in. Ships changed course. Fleets mobilized. Humans were known for unpredictable courage, and now they had a cause. They would fight over less, and this injustice was too blatant to ignore. The enforcers hesitated. They had not expected such resistance. They had not expected the human to defy law, to risk everything for an alien they considered unworthy. Yet Evan stood firm, shielding Lura and the child with his own body, defiance radiating in every movement. Inside, Lura felt a mix of fear and awe. This human stranger, savior, was challenging centuries of rules and prejudice. He was risking everything so she and her daughter could live. For the first time, she realized that life could fight back against cruelty, if only one being refused to look away. Hours passed. The enforcers scanned, debated, communicated, but the pressure of human attention grew too great. They could not act openly without sparking a confrontation that might reach systems far beyond their control. Finally, the leader spoke, voice tight with frustration and caution. "Exception granted. The child may live. The mother will not be returned to exile. This action is recorded as temporary." Relief crashed over Lura like warm sunlight after a long winter. She clutched her daughter, her tears falling freely now. She whispered words of thanks to Evan. Though she knew they would never fully express the depth of her gratitude, Evan smiled tiredly. "See, rules aren't always stronger than life." The danger had passed, but the lesson remained. Life was worth more than fear. Compassion could challenge even the strictest laws. And in the quiet moments that followed, as Lura held her child and Evan monitored the now silent coms, the space station no longer felt empty. It was alive with possibility. And Lura knew that this child, born into a universe that had once rejected her, would grow up knowing that courage and humanity could change everything. The alien council had retreated. But the warmth of victory was not just in avoiding punishment, it was in the quiet, unspoken bond forming between Lura, her daughter, and Evan, the small ship. Once cold and lifeless, now hummed with life. Soft lights glowed over the mats, and the baby's cries, once tiny and fragile, now rang with strength and demand. Lura held her child close, marveling at the tiny hands and bright eyes, and realized that she had never felt truly safe until this human chose to stand beside her. Evan moved through the room with calm efficiency. He had cleaned the ship, adjusted oxygen levels, and arranged supplies. But he had also sat with her through the long nights, holding her hand when exhaustion and fear threatened to overwhelm her. Lura had never known a creature like him, someone who could be strong without cruelty, brave without recklessness, loving without expectation. Humans, she thought, were strange indeed. But somehow this one was exactly what she needed. Days turned into cycles. Lura and Evan worked together to prepare for a life beyond the station. She learned to trust him, to lean on him when weakness struck. And he learned the rhythms of her species, the way she needed warmth, the way she measured pain, the way she spoke to her daughter in soft, melodic words, even though the child did not yet understand. "You know," Evan said one evening as he cleaned a water filter, "most humans would have just looked the other way. Most would have let the council's laws take you both. Lura shook her head, tears brimming. You risked everything for a stranger. He shrugged. A stranger who needed help. That's all it takes sometimes. Her daughter stirred in her arms, tiny eyes blinking up at them both. Lura smiled, feeling a surge of fierce protection and pride. She had survived exile, survived pain, survived fear, and now, with Evan's help, she was learning what it felt like to be safe, to be seen, to be loved. The baby grew stronger with each passing day, and Lura began teaching her words, songs, and stories from their homeworld. She laughed softly when the child tried to mimic human words, her bright eyes sparkling with curiosity and wonder. Evan watched these moments quietly, his chest swelling with a quiet pride. He had not expected to find purpose on a forgotten space station, but now he understood that some acts of compassion could change more than a life. They could change the universe. One evening, Lura stood at the viewport, holding her daughter as they watched distant stars drift by. The station no longer felt abandoned. It felt like a place of new beginnings. Do you think they'll ever forgive me? Lura asked softly, looking at Evan. He shook his head. Some people never forgive. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you survived, that she survived, and that you both have a chance at life. Lura's eyes filled with tears again, but they were different this time, not sorrowful, but grateful, fierce, and alive. For the first time, she understood that life did not always need permission. Love did not need justification. Courage did not need recognition. And a human had proven that the smallest choice could resist the weight of entire worlds. And in that moment, Lura whispered to her daughter, "You are alive because someone refused to look away. Remember that." The child's small hand curled around her finger. Lura smiled. She knew that this life, this chance, was more than survival. It was hope. And hope, once nurtured, could never be taken away. Beyond the viewport, the stars shone brighter. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the echo of humanity's courage rippled quietly, changing hearts and laws, showing that mercy could be stronger than fear, and life could triumph over cruelty. Years passed. The small ship that had once been a fragile refuge became a home, and the baby who had been born illegal grew into a strong, curious child. Lura watched her daughter explore every corner of the station, her bright eyes taking in the world with wonder. Every day, she marveled at how something so small could carry so much hope. The child laughed freely, unafraid, and Lura felt a deep, unshakable joy that had been denied to her for decades. Evan stayed by their side through it all. The bond they had formed during those first terrifying cycles had grown into something quiet and unbreakable. He helped Lura teach her daughter stories of both their worlds, tales of stars and oceans, music and laughter, courage and survival. Lura realized that without him, none of this would have been possible. He had not just saved their lives. He had given them a future. The child, now old enough to speak clearly, loved to hear about her mother's exile and the journey that had brought them together. Lura told the story gently, careful not to burden her with fear, but to teach her courage. "Your life began when I was cast out," Lura said softly one evening. "But it thrived because a human refused to leave us alone. Never forget that. Courage can live in even the smallest hearts." Evan nodded beside her, pride shining in his eyes. "You are alive because someone cared," he added. "Never let anyone tell you that hope is weak. It is the strongest thing in the universe." Word of Lura's survival spread across human space. Councils debated, laws shifted, and for the first time, exiles were treated with care rather than cruelty. The story of a human defying authority to protect an alien and her child became a quiet legend, whispered in halls of ships and stations, a reminder that compassion could bend even the strictest rules. On the old station, now refurbished and filled with life again, Lura looked out at the stars with her daughter in her arms. The baby she had carried through fear and pain was now a vibrant child, laughing as she pointed to distant constellations. The galaxy that had once cast her away now seemed full of possibility. "Do you think the Council will forgive us?" her daughter asked, eyes wide and innocent. Lura shook her head gently, smiling. "Forgiveness isn't important. What matters is that we survived. That you survived. And that life was never taken from us." The girl nodded, her small hand clutching her mother's. "I want to be brave like the human who helped us," she said. Lura kissed her forehead. "You already are." Evan watched them, heart full. He had crossed the galaxy and risked everything for strangers. But he had discovered something he had never expected. That one act of courage could echo across worlds, reshaping lives and hearts forever. As the stars glittered beyond the viewport, Lura whispered a final truth to her daughter. And perhaps to the universe itself. We were not meant to survive. And yet we did. And that is the gift of hope. In time, Lura's story and the human who saved her became a symbol across species, a testament that mercy, courage, and love could conquer fear, cruelty, and law. The old space station, once a place of exile and despair, now held laughter, warmth, and life, and somewhere in the quiet hum of machinery and starlight, the universe seemed to lean in, listening to a tale of bravery, showing that humanity did not conquer with weapons, nor with authority, but with the simple, powerful choice to care. Life had triumphed. Love had triumphed. And humanity, through one human, who refused to look away, had shown the galaxy that even the smallest acts of courage could echo forever.